Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I had to make this card. It was one of those like in the middle of the night sort of ideas that was playing itself out like from start to finish. I knew exactly what I wanted to create and how I wanted it to look. So the minute I had some free time, I pulled out the Mermaid's Tail stamp set. This is an exclusive Hutson set. And I adjusted it onto my Fiskars stamp press so that it was more just the end of the tail, because you can see on the original stamp it's quite like curled up, and I only wanted the ends. So being a clear photopolymer stamp, I was able to kind of put it the way I wanted it on my Fiskars stamp press, and then I'm stamping it multiple times onto some BRISTOL smooth cardstock, and each piece of the BRISTOL smooth I'm using my anti-static powder tool. And then I'm inking up the stamp with VersaMark ink, so just a clear, sticky, slow-drying ink. And then I'm coating that stamped image with Here Where It's White embossing powder, and then I'm going to melt that with my heat tool. So I end up doing this 6 times, and then I'm just going to move my Fiskars stamp press out of the way. I left the tail on it the way I had kind of adjusted it because I plan on using it later. And then once I have all of these pieces melted, I pulled out several different colors of Distress Oxide inks. You could totally use like regular Distress inks for this, or and dye inks. Any of that would work. But of course, I have my stack of Distress Oxides sitting here, and I'm obsessed with them, and they blend like a dream. So I'm just picking up the color with my mini ink blending tool and then sponging it over the stamped image. So because these are Distress Oxide inks and they're more of a pigment ink than your standard, regular Distress inks or dye inks, it somewhat covers the white heat embossing. So after I'm done sponging on the color, I just took a tissue and rub it against the image, and that takes off any of the ink that's on top of that embossing, so then it makes the white pop a little bit more. So I just made sure to sponge on the color so that it goes over all of the edges, and then I have a bit of a border of that color as well. And then I've super sped up this process on camera here, just so that we're not sitting here just watching me sponge away for a bit. It honestly didn't take very long to do these. It was so simple just to quickly sponge on each color and then wipe off the excess with that tissue and then just go on. And I'm doing this all in, of course, rainbow order. I'm obsessed with all things rainbow lately. So I used Candied Apple, then I used Spice Marmalade, Fossilized Amber, Lucky Clover, Salty Ocean, and finally Wilted Violet. And then once I got done, I decided to just use my water brush and paint over the very end of the tail. It's hard to see on camera. It just lightened it up just a little bit, nothing too crazy. But I just lightened it up with my water brush and was just wiping off the excess onto that same tissue so that I don't end up mixing any of the colors between one tail to the other. And then sometimes I would also dab the tail a little bit with the tissue just to pick up that color. It just lightened it a tiny little bit. But you definitely could do it a lot more. But because this stamp image is so detailed already with all the little lines and the little like shell design or gill design, fish scales, etc. It's not really necessary to go in and try and add any extra detail. So I kept it fairly simple. And then once I was done with all that, I'm going to use my scissors to trim these out because, like I said in the beginning, I manipulated this stamp so it won't work with the coordinating die. There is a coordinating die set for this, but because I moved everything around, it won't fit in the die. So I just quickly trim these out, leaving a little bit of a border around the edge just to make it easier to cut out. I'm just using my little detail cutting scissors. So I went around and did that for every single tail so that they're all nice and trimmed out. And then I can go on to actually assembling my card. So I wanted these colors to pop. So my card base, of course, is going to be some just heavyweight white cardstock. So I took 8.5 by 11 sheet and I'm cutting it in half at 5.5 inches. And then I'm going to score it at 4.25 inches. So it'll be a top folding A2 size card. So 4.25 by 5.5 inches. And I just used the cutting groove in my paper trimmer to use my Teflon bone folder to score it. And then I always like to really press down that crease so that the card folds nicely. And then once I was done that, this part I wasn't even 100% sure that all these tails would fit on an A2 size card. So I quickly kind of laid them out and I was like, okay, I can still make this work. It's all going to work. So now I can finish off this card. So I want to do the inside first before I start adhering everything to the outside. And while I was doing all the sponging, I thought how fun it would be to stamp all these images with the mermaid's tail with those same colors. So I used a bit of masking, post-it masking tape, just to kind of keep the rest of the tail from getting inked up so that I'm not getting ink absolutely everywhere. And I'm going to use the exact same colors and stamp them in the exact same order on the inside of the card. So after I stamp one, I'm going to quickly wipe this off with a baby wipe. If I remember, I'll try to remember to link the baby wipes that I use in the description box below the video. I use these to clean my stamps. I use them to clean my work surface, all that sort of stuff. Like, these are the absolute best baby wipes, and they don't leave little fibers everywhere like some of the cheaper kinds do. These are just amazing. So again, sped this up a lot because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. So just cleaning off the stamp, inking it up, masking off the rest of the tail, inking it up with the Distress Oxide ink, and then cleaning it off, going on to the next colors. Just over and over and over again until I have them all stamped on the inside of the card. And then I'm going to wipe up all that excess ink off of my craft mat here so that I don't end up getting it anywhere else on this white card base. So wiped everything up with that same baby wipe, let it dry, and then I grabbed the sentiments from that same Mermaid's Tail set. And I'm going to stamp the first one on the outside of the card, and I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink for this. So I stamped my outside sentiment, and then I'm going to stamp my inside sentiment right above the tails on the inside of the card. Once that's done, I can now start adhering all of these tails to the front of the card. So I wanted to pop them all up with some foam tape or some dimensionals. I just had some old dimensionals in my stash, which I kind of regret pulling out because they've started to like fuse to the backing paper, which is such a pain. But because it's foam dimensionals, I don't want to get rid of them. So I fiddled. That was actually, I think, what took the longest with this card. It was like wrestling with that backing paper. I ended up having to use my detail scissors to like help, pry them off. So I just coated each tail, or like adhered each tail with dimensionals, and would flip over the card front each time and trim off just the excess parts of the tail that were hanging over the edge of the card so that everything has a straight edge. And then the two on the end, the red one and the purple one, I let those hang over the sides just a little bit because I liked how that looked. However, if you're fitting this into an A2 size envelope, you might have to trim those off. But for now, I'm just going to leave them because I just like how it looks. So I adhered all the different colors in rainbow order onto my card front, and they're all nicely popped up. And then for a final bit of embellishment, I have the Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear Confetti Mix sequins. These are the ones that don't have holes in the middle. I thought those would look really cute, kind of looking almost like bubbles or, a little splash, whatever. So I was very liberal with these. Sprinkle them quite liberally throughout the card, and I'm going to adhere them all into place with my multi-medium matte adhesive. I'm just going to pick everything up with my crystal katana and then squeeze down a little bit of adhesive, and then press those into place. And then I ended up switching hands while I was doing this. I'm moderately ambidextrous, and I was just finding it was easier to pick everything up with my right hand and then apply the adhesive with my left so I could get all these sequins into place. And that finished off my card. This was so much fun, and I just love the bright colors. As always, I will have links below the video to my blog post where I'll have the pictures as well as picture links to all the supplies used. All that info will be in the description box below the video, so check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!